listening to Ron Siegel's Home and Finance Show with local and national expert Ron Siegel. Now, here's Ron.
Welcome back to Ron Siegel Home and Finance Radio. Within every market, there are solutions as well as tremendous opportunities. You just need some trusted guidance. That's my message, and as your consumer advocate, I will be delivering it every day on Ron Siegel Radio anytime at 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990. The Mortgage Minute today brought to you by the Siegel Lending Team. When you're ready for that first house, next house, bigger house, any house, the team has all the products you can possibly need. You've got the phone number. Now it's up to you. Can you still get a good deal on a home? Very interesting topic. I saw this report on one of the finance pages overnight, and it was very interesting looking at what people consider. Can you get a good deal? What do you want a good deal for? Why? That's my biggest question. I ask that all the time, and people look at me and say, Ronnie, you nuts. Well, they say that about many reasons. But the issue here is, if you are looking for your family, if you're looking for a primary residence, why is it that when we start shopping for a home, that's really the only time that we consider the idea of a good deal? You're looking for schools. Isn't that more important? Isn't the neighborhood more important? Isn't your family's security more important? Aren't there a lot of items that are much more important than a good deal when you're looking for your family's primary residence? The answer from a financial standpoint is another somewhat mystery. I wonder why it is that I hear people, and yes, interest rates are going to go up today. Yesterday was a tough day in the market. Today's not much better in the bond market. So interest rates are going to go up. So what does that mean? It means that instead of getting a 4% loan, maybe you're at a 4.25% loan, maybe a 4.5% loan, 5%. 4 years ago at this time, you were paying 6.5 or 7. 10 years ago at this time, you were paying 7.5 or 8. 20 years ago at this time, you were paying 16 or 17. So think about that. Everything is relative. So when you start complaining that, oh, wow, interest rates are at 4.5, what does that really mean to you? So yes, you can still get a good deal on a home, but remember, it's all about what you can afford. It's about what's right for you. And then put that aside. Get qualified for the loan and then set that aside. Get in touch with a great real estate agent and then look and say, okay, where do I want to live? What meets my family needs? Because I suggest to you that a great real estate agent doesn't matter to me, or many instances, how many bedrooms you want, how many bathrooms you want. The question really should be, tell me about your family. Because you may have to say, okay, I need 2 bedrooms today, but why? Are you planning on having more kids? Are you planning on increasing the family size? Are you planning on downsizing? Your home is a long-term investment. The information that you provide a great real estate agent is the information that they're going to be able to use to find the right property for you, because you're going to only buy 4 or 5 houses in your lifetime, for the most part. They're dealing with people every day. There are items that the real estate agents will understand that you're not even thinking of yet. How about, is there a bedroom downstairs? You might not have thought about that, but for resale purposes, that might be important. And maybe if you're in your 50s, you haven't thought about the fact about the creaky knees and a sore back, and going upstairs may not be fun. So think about getting what's really important on a good deal. It's about your family for the long term, about finding the right property for you for the long term, and have a conversation. Because when you go to, here's the worst part about the internet. I'm going to share this with you right now. When you go to the internet, there's no box that says what's going to happen with your family in the future. When you go to look at the internet for real estate, no box for that. It says, how many bedrooms do you want? You put in a number, maybe 3 or 3 plus or whatever the number is. I don't look at it very often because I don't think it's good information. But the information is really about the data, about getting to know a family, getting about to know where they're heading. And that's more important. That's what is dealing with your household board of directors. That is the Mortgage Minute today, brought to you by the Siegel Lending Team. We chat about those issues and a lot more with Melinda Johnson. Melinda, what do you think? That box that says, how many bedrooms do you want? Is that really answering much about the family's real needs?
No, and often the buyer isn't thinking forward. They're excited, they're buying a house, but they're not thinking, where am I going to be in the next few years? And we have some friends who had a house in Yorba Linda, and they're looking to do a very significant remodel to a very large house. And I don't know if they've taken the time until we said something to say, but where are your kids going to be in a few years? All your kids are going to be out of the house and you'll be in this 6,000 square foot house. So people are often, not just taking the time to step out of the emotional decision of buying a house and say, how is this going to fit me over my next 5 to 7 year plan? And that's something that your board of directors can do for you.
Perfect information right there. And here's another thought about that. And here's spent most of the afternoon yesterday with the folks from Energy Efficient California or something like that. I forgot the exact name of the group. I should get it correct. Build It Green, I know, is part of it. They're talking about the idea of not putting solar panels on a person's house. Ironically enough, Build It Green saying don't put solar panels on your house. That's the last thing that you want to be doing. But along the same lines, and I'll explain that in a minute, but along the same lines, Melinda, when you're talking about doing a big upgrade, one of the groups that I had talked to, and I've got to find their name again and see about getting them in, they were talking about building homes that are conducive for the aging. And one of the concepts they talked about was stacking closets. The idea of having a upstairs closet and a downstairs closet, one right over the other, because that way down the road, maybe 10 years, 15 years, you may want to be able to put some sort of senior accessibility for a senior to get from the upstairs to the downstairs and vice versa. Elevator or something.
Fantastic. So they're planning for the future
Right.
installation of an elevator.
Right. So if you got a 6,000 foot house, I know you can afford an elevator.
Right.
You may not need it today, but when you're doing that remodel, if you put the closet one above another, there's not a lot of extra work that has to go into that.
Right.
Right? Isn't that I found it fascinating. I don't know how many people think of it, but we've got an aging population, more baby boomers. Even if that family is not going to be there for their retirement years, for resale purposes, that's a great tool.
Yeah, it's just interesting how much people don't think about that. And so many conversations I've had with people about 1-story versus 2-story who are in their 40s and just saying, think about it over the next 10 years. And they're just not of that mindset because they're not dealing with it on a day-to-day basis.
Are you seeing, here's a question. I know years ago, sometimes I date myself when I say that. I almost sound like my parents. But years ago, we used to talk about the fact that 70% of home sales are in 3-bedroom, 2-bath or more. And it had a lot to do with the issue of growing families. Now with the family sizes maybe shrinking, are we seeing more of the smaller units being of value or holding value with the baby boomers? Yeah,
we're definitely seeing the shift. Like I can perceptibly see it in the market. We have a single story, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, just 1,350 square feet in Anaheim Hills. And the majority of visitors at my last open house were actually downsizing baby boomers, where that has traditionally been a house where, starting out families would go into. We're now seeing them downsize into something smaller. And that was the majority of people who came to visit the open house.
Interesting. So we're seeing both ways. You're dealing with some of the folks. There's some great information right there. You're dealing with people that are going to downsize, and at the same time dealing with somebody that's doing remodeling on a 6,000 foot house. The concept here, what I'm trying to get to, is not that either one of those matter to you. What's important to you is the fact of getting great advice from somebody who is dealing with both, because then that experience can be brought to whatever it is that you need. You might be the 2,000 foot, 3,000 foot home buyer, but some of the experience that you hear from somebody that's doing a remodel, get a lot of education out of that. That's the key component when you're looking for your household board of directors. We were chatting about that with, I started mentioning about the idea of the solar, and we'll talk a little bit about solar because I'm seeing more and more people really promoting solar. You hear all these commercials all day long, and I'm probably glad that I don't have a solar provider as a sponsor, but because they'd get mad at me for saying this. When we talk to the folks at here's the name, Energy Upgrade California, the idea is to reduce your consumption before you put those panels on, because you may need half the amount of panels if you reduce your consumption by some of the strategies that they're educating people on. We're going to talk about that more in the days and weeks to come, but you are listening to Ron Siegel, Home and Finance Radio, discussing your real estate, current events, and the financial markets. When we come back, how do you compete with an all-cash buyer? We'll talk about it. Last-minute vacations, some budget tips, $1 million U.S. housing loans surge. Really? I keep hearing there's no money out there. How could that possibly be? You can reach us anytime at our off-air number, 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990, or ronsiegelradio.com. Stay tuned to Ron Siegel, Home and Finance Radio. We will be back in just a few.
I remember way back then when everything was room, when we would have such a very good time, such a fine time, such a happy time. And I remember how we played, simply waste the day away. Then